and welcome to today's Library Adventures Live. My name's Jude, and I'm one of the librarians for Kirklees Libraries. And I'm super excited to be here today because it seems like forever since I hosted a Library Adventures Live. And I know what great guests we've got on today, so I'm really excited about that. Now, not only are we doing one Library Adventures Live today, but we're doing two Library Adventures Live in the same day, and that's because we're celebrating Libraries Week. And Libraries Week Libraries Week 2021 takes place between the 4th and the 10th of October, and it celebrates what they say is the nation's much loved libraries and their central role that libraries play within the communities. And we want to celebrate our libraries who are taking action and changing lives. So you can find out a little bit more about Libraries Week by going to this website, librariesweek.org.uk. And also, you can follow all sorts of things that are happening to do with Libraries Week at Libraries Week, or you can tell people what you're doing for Libraries Week here, #Libraries Week. So much to get involved in. Now, I'm just going to say that Library Adventures Live isn't just for Libraries Week. No, not at all. It's for any time throughout the year. And you can watch them every single day, or you could just watch them once a week, or just when you're thinking, oh, what shall I do today? Because it's raining outside and I want something different to do. You can pop along to, let's get the right banner up. Sorry about that. You can pop along to kirkleeslibraries.co.uk/LAL and you'll see lots and lots of previous Library Adventures Live. And even though they were live, most of them were recorded. So you can still have a watch at them, and a lot of them will have some challenges for you to do as well. So pop along. I'm sure you'll find something that you'll like there. Now let's have a little look at what's happening next. So I do hope that you'll celebrate with us with Libraries Week and get on and do lots of different things. Now, Library Adventures Live is live, and we always love to hear from you, whether you send us emails or follow us on social media or just send us a tweet. We always love to hear from you, but when we're doing live events, we particularly like to hear from you. So you can post any comments, questions, or just have a shout out by going to the chat box wherever you're watching. That might be Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and those will come straight over to us and we'll be able to answer them as we go along. Now we've got a super special guest today, and we're really pleased to be joined by Laura Dockrill. Now, Laura Dockrill has written lots and lots of books, and there's tons of quotes about all the amazing books that she's written. And if I read every single quote, all these good quotes, honestly, we'd have no time left to meet Laura. And I know that we definitely want to meet Laura. So I'm just going to say one of the things that's been written about Laura. Laura is one of the most original and interesting voices in children's literature. And I always look forward to reading any new book she writes. And that's by Francesca Simon, you know, the author of Horrid Henry books. Whoa, I couldn't agree more. We always look forward to the new books that Laura's going to be writing. And today, Laura's going to be talking mainly about one of her books, The Dream House. Now, this is a wonderful book, and we get to meet lots of different characters. Now, I've read the book and I could tell you about it, but you know what? I don't think you're here to listen to me talking about The Dream House. I'm sure you're here to listen to Laura and to have a chat with Laura, hopefully in the chat box. So let's get on and meet Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Jude. Thank you
Hi.
so much.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you. And I'm wondering what you might have planned for us today, because I know you've got lots of exciting things.
I'm just so excited to be here to meet everybody. I'm going to be reading a little bit from the Dream House, hopefully answering
Oh,
some of your questions and telling you how the idea came about, came to life, and a little bit about being a writer.
Oh, that sounds absolutely wonderful. And I know we're asking people to send questions through, so we'll keep a bit of an eye on the questions that might come through or any shout outs, and we'll pop back up. If you are so busy doing the reading and talking that you miss them, we'll just pop back up. But
Thank
otherwise, we're going
you.
to leave you to it, Laura.
Well, happy Libraries Week.
Oh, thank you so much. We always love celebrating
Oh.
libraries. And I'll enjoy listening to you in the
Me
background. Bye for
too.
now, Laura. Bye.
You. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here. I am so sorry that I can't be with you in your, school space or wherever you are watching this. Eat Maltesers with you and cookies with you and laugh our heads off and have the best time together. But you know what? I will say, and this is the truth, doing this in this way, this is where I actually write every single day. And I think there is something quite special about being in a writer's space. This is where I actually write my stories right here. And, I keep with me this is my little teeth that I keep me company with, a real mold of my actual teeth. What else have I got? My special Barbie doll. She was actually mine when I was a little girl. Her name's Zoe. She was mostly naked for a lot of the last 10 years. So I bought her a little dress when lockdown happened and she keeps me company. So actually, where you are, you've got a lava lamp, my son's robot that he made. This is where I do all of my writing. So I feel very happy to speak to you from here and very comfortable. I hope you guys feel good too. So my name's Laura Dockrill. I'm a writer for my everyday real life job. That's what I do. We can talk about more about how I became a writer. If any of you have any questions about that, you can ask me at any point. How the session is going to work is very informal and relaxed. If I say anything and you have a thought or an idea where you want to know more, please do use the chat box, ask an adult that you're with, or maybe you can do it on your own. Please keep this conversation going because I want it to feel as much like we're having a Nando's together or a McDonald's and being as relaxed as possible. We can just talk, 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 talk. That's the best we're going to get the most out of the session. And I want you guys to really, I'd hate the idea of you putting your head on your pillow tonight and going, oh, I never asked her if she picks her nose or how she likes her eggs or what she thinks is in the sky. Ask me whatever you want and I'll answer that. So questions throughout the session, there's no set time. So I guess I'll start about how I first became a writer. So when I was a little girl, I always knew I wanted to write. I think at school, I wasn't hugely academic. Maybe there's somebody here listening today that thinks, oh, maybe I want to be creative or do writing for my job, but I'm not very good at spelling and grammar. Well, that was me. I would always worry about, what order an I or an E went in, and my spelling always felt like it was getting in the way. And I knew so badly that I wanted to tell stories, but would always dread the big red pen when my teacher would come out and draw circles around and go, try, that spelling could be improved, or that's not how you spell this. When I was at school, I don't know if this happens with you guys, but our teacher would put the work on the wall so everyone could see it. And I'd be like, oh no, I've written this book and now this story, sorry, and now there's all red lines all over it, and it would make me feel disappointed. So it kind of knocked my confidence a little bit as I went on with school. And it felt like the harder that, the more grown up I got and the harder that school became, the more exams came in and everything, it was putting me off. And I remember thinking to myself, what bit of the school day do I enjoy the most? And it was, to no surprise, playtime. And I thought, how can I make playtime be the most of my job that I do for the rest of my life? So I really, if you take anything from today's session, it is ask yourself that. What bit of your day do you enjoy doing the most? It could be eating, or it could be maths, it could be sports, it could be whatever you like the most. How can you make that be your future? Because you do have a choice. I have this lovely dream that when I become, rich and famous old lady, I'm going to make this thing called the Hob Centre, which is where people can come with their hobbies and we can really focus on making that the thing that we do the most in the day. So ask yourself that. So as a child, I was always scribbling, always drawing, and I used to fill up, notes. I keep these now still, actually. I'll show you some. These pads, you probably know them from school. Well, we used to have them in our school. Just plain exercise books like these. And my dad would buy them for me, plain or blank, or simply staple pages of paper for me, or use treasure tags and staples or sellotape and make little books for me. And I would just fill them with poems and stories and comics and drawings. and never stopped, basically. And as soon as one was finished, I just leave it and get on to the next one. I think if they're all stacked up now, they're probably as tall as me. That's how many of these books I've filled. And actually, I save them. I do still keep them now because they're so great for generating new ideas. If I'm ever stuck, I can look back over one of these stories, these books, and it's just really nice for me to keep hold of them. So write all the time and don't let the spelling or the grammar get in your way. You know, I will say that to you as well. So I knew definitely that I wanted to tell stories. And when it came to playtime, I was always the one imagining, let's pretend we're this, let's do this, let's go off here. And I would sometimes in class be dreaming of what we could do in the playtime. So, oh, this is going to happen. Sometimes we pick the game up from where we left it that session and be like, do you remember yesterday we were on a pirate ship, or we were in the Victorian days, or we were goblins? Let's pick up from where we left off. And I had one best friend, Siobhan, who's still one of my best friends now. We've been friends since we were 3 years old, and this is who I would do this with. And then I'd sometimes write the stories down that we'd imagined. So I knew all the time this is what I wanted to do. But I was nervous with the spelling and grammar getting in my way, so I started learning the work off by heart. A bit like a Mother Goose meets Lady Gaga sort of storyteller. And I'd learn some of the work and tell it live. And that's where I really, like, a bit like what I'm doing now. And that's really where this really set a light inside my heart. And I thought, this is what I want to do for my job, is tell stories, write all the time as much as possible out loud. And I think there is a kind of an interesting space there to be a pop star storyteller. If anyone is thinking about writing and they think, oh, but my spelling grammar isn't so strong on the page, be a pop star storyteller and think that you can tell these stories out loud in that kind of way. And actually, it's just an extension of conversation. So many people say to me, I love talking, but I can't write. Talking is just writing, and everybody can write. And all you need to be a writer is two things, and that's not even a pen. It's your brain and your heart. If you've got a brain and a heart, you can tell a story. I think it was Roald Dahl, the author. I'm sure you know Roald Dahl. He wrote BFG and The Twits and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda and many other great books, James and the Giant Peach. And he said that really the true skill you needed to be a children's author, or maybe any author, is a good memory. I'm one of those annoying people that do have quite a good memory. You can't borrow anything off me and I'll remember exactly what you owe me. And I always go, oh, I remember this. So that has helped me so much when writing children's books, because I try my best to remember what it was like being a child. And that's helped me so much, because we all know what it's like when something happens in our day, something that's upsets us or annoys us or excites us. Say we've got something to look forward to and it's all we can think about. When you get older, those things just layer and layer and layer, and there's so many things to think about. So how does it feel to be small when your only job is, what's this new film going to be like, or what am I going to get for my birthday, or I've fallen out with a friend and I'm feeling a bit upset about it and I want to make it better? That really requires a good memory, remembering how it feels to be small and what excites me and what makes me sad and all of those things. So The Dream House, which is the book that I'm sharing at the moment that just came out, I'm getting used to my lefts and rights. Maybe you're not good at your lefts and rights. Neither am I. That's why I do this job. I'm terrible at maths, really bad at maths. I'm not an academic person. And that's another thing I think. People always think when you're a writer that you must be really clever and like be best friends with Stephen Fry and David Attenborough and know all the words in the dictionary. And I think, no, I really don't. I just love stories and I just love books. Don't let that stop you. You don't need to be the smartest cookie in the cookie jar to be a storyteller. You only need, remember, your brain and your heart. So when I was a little girl, we lived in Brixton in South London. So we had a really small flat, me, my brother, my sister, my mum and my dad, all crunched up on top of each other, elbows popping out of windows, all sleeping in bunk beds and all over the place, and so much stuff. My mum loved secondhand shops, junk shops. She would always buy us toys and fun things from everywhere. We had a tiny little garden that was all overgrown with pots, and she'd try and decorate it with like funny sunglasses hanging on the wall, and everything was everywhere. Toys bursting out of the cupboards that were, secondhand, that were hers. And she's not very good at throwing food away either. So jars of food that was probably about 10 years old, and it was just chaos. But we loved it. I had such a loving, happy, creative upbringing where my parents spoke to us like they were our friends. You know, they'd laugh at our jokes and be interested in us. We'd listen to music, punk music, rock music, soul music, Motown music, disco music, the Beatles, David Bowie, and that's how I grew up. Actually, and that's probably how my love for writing came along so much, was also listening to lyrics. That's another form of storytelling. Many people say, I don't like books, I don't like stories, they're not for me, but they love rap music. And it's exactly the same. So it's still another form of storytelling. So my dad had a best friend, has a best friend still. His name was Chrissy Wardy, and he was our godfather. Same as Rex, my parents, we weren't religious, but he was our godfather and he took care of us as well. And he didn't have any of his own children, which we absolutely rinsed, because we were like, well, we'll be your kids. You buy us an ice cream, take us to Legoland, spoil us. And he didn't mind doing this because he didn't have any children of his own. And he lived on the other side of London, where it was really green, and he had this, for us, it seemed like a massive garden, overgrown with nettles, and a big willow tree that actually bent down and kind of arcs like a big grandma tree with bark all blistered and aged. And there was a pond there with real life algae and frogs and toads. There were slugs and snails this big. Creepy crawlies every time you lifted a rock up or a stone or a log. You know, there was a million woodlouse would, you know, sort of buggle out of it, and we just thought we'd never seen anything like it. We just thought this was so wild, and we couldn't believe that at the weekends, just a drive across London, and we were going to somewhere that was so rich and bewildering and magical, and we truly loved it there. And he even had a blackberry bush, and we go back there thinking that we'd like somehow been on this mystical journey. Oh, I'm getting some questions. I love seeing authors' studios and writing spaces, Olivia. Thank you. Thanks for letting us in. That's such a nice comment to say. Thank you, Olivia. I do too. I do too. And actually, I like it when they have pictures in the back of the author like this, to do a real like posh author's face. It's actually very serious. You're not allowed to smile. That's my posh author's face. I like that too, and I wish there were more pictures of writing spaces. I've always wanted to go to Roald Dahl's writing place. I've never been there. We did a project actually where we kind of recreated that space with the South Bank Centre a few years ago, and that was just amazing. I agree with you. So we would go to this garden at the weekends. There's a blackberry bush, and we'd pick it, and we'd come back with like stains of the black currants on our fingers. And I'd be so, you know, smug going into school the next day being like, I've been blackberry, you know, picking, thinking that I had been to this magical adventure. When really it was just an excuse for my dad to sit there and drink beers with his best friends in the garden, and we just loved it. Anyway, Chrissy Wardy once built us a sort of house, hut, shed. It's not a house, doesn't qualify to be a house, but a sort of wonky shed in the back of his garden. And he made just wooden, where it had a little roof, and he had found an old window, a derelict window, and so it had a real glass, you know, sort of cottagey classic looking window to it, only small. And he'd also found in a skip these giant pictures, amazingly, one of a giraffe, one of dolphins or lions. They always, you know, my memory sometimes twists it. It might be twisted. It might have even been three, but I remember definitely giraffes, dolphins, and lions across the wall, and two little vintage desks. You know, those old-fashioned ones with the inkwells with the lovely lifty, flappy up lids. And he carpeted it with old school carpet that he found in a skip. You know, that really itchy kind of scratchy carpet that's all grey with the like beard hairs, you know, coming out of it. And because he's an electrician for his job, he managed to put a little heater in it there and lit it up for us. So suddenly we didn't just have this amazing landscape to frolic in. You know, if I went back there and I showed you it, you'd be like, that's just a normal garden. But at the time, to us, this felt so magical. Now we had a little Wendy house. It was more than a Wendy house to play in. And he called it the dream house. So this was ours. It had a little latch, a proper like press down that you could go into. And I remember saying to Chrissy Wardy, well, what's it for? And he said, it's for dreaming. And that just always stuck with me, that could be this possibility of this space that is solely made for creating or thinking or meditating or just daydreaming. It seems too luxurious now, especially after this time that we've had where we've been given too much time to do all of that. I couldn't believe it. And inside he filled it, was one for my sister and one for me. And he put would put toys in it, comics, books, magazines, treats, and nothing over the top, but just stuff for us to play with. And that's what we did. We dreamt. So that's really where my writing sort of came to life. And I guess with that, what my point is, it was permission really for me to do this. I wouldn't probably be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for that little space where somebody said, I wouldn't say that I wrote my books there, but somebody said, dream, think, you're allowed. This isn't, extra luxury. This could be something that you do. And so I knew I wanted to do something with the dream house. When my sister and I now were grown ups with our own houses, we always fight like, who's going to have the dream house in their garden? We had this idea that we could be powerful enough to get a crane and hoist it out of Chrissy Wardy's garden and plonk it in ours. But I think it belongs exactly where it is, which is under Chrissy Wardy's willow tree over the pond. So I was writing a play actually with the dream house inside it, and it just wasn't quite, the magic wasn't quite showing, and I think that's because it needed an illustrator. And then after I had my own son, I got very unwell myself. I wasn't able to work for a little bit, and I had to take some time out of work, and this story was still in my mind, like, what do I do with this? And it seemed to suddenly grow and come to life. I'm going to share a little bit of the dream house with you guys now, and then I'll show you some of Gwen's amazing illustrations too. So this is at the point in time. Oh, okay. We've got a question which I'm going to answer now, because I would hate the idea of to not answer them. What age would you recommend the dream house book for? Well, I think this session is aimed at 9+, which I think is quite a good age bracket. I do think it's a bit boring. Do you guys sometimes when they say what when they try and say this is, when you look on the back of a board game and it's like recommended ages 3+, and you think, oh, is this going to be boring because it's aimed at 3-year-olds? And actually you find it really fun and you're playing Hungry Hippos for hours. Sometimes age barrier things can bracket us and make us feel too constricted. But I would say there are some themes in here that are a little bit more sophisticated. There's some hard stuff in here too. The book is about grief, which I'll talk about now. And where we find Rex, he's at a really sad, desperate place. So I would say that you might need an adult to hold your hand or a good friend to comfort you. But that's what the book is about. It's about hope and empathy and kindness and sensitivity and all those delicate things. And I think this is what I realized when being a bit unwell myself, was that actually as a children's author, which is, I'm very proud to be a children's author and write for young people, before knowing this stuff, this dark stuff, I used to always write books that believed children's books needed to be funny and happy all the time and about the good stuff in life. And now that I've learned that actually it's really important to give space for the harder stuff in life, the challenging stuff. That doesn't mean that great stuff can't also happen, but there is room for both. And I almost wish that the books I read showcased that a little bit more too and provided a platform for that. I'm a very, very big Jacqueline Wilson fan. I don't know if you got anybody out here who's a Jacqueline Wilson fan. I have met Jacqueline Wilson a couple of times. I've shared a packet of biscuits with her. Sorry about me. She really is as magnetic and as wonderful in real life as what she seems to be. So amazing woman, and her rings are incredible, but she always never shied away from that. She always lent into the hard stuff of life as well, and I think that was an important message to pass across in children's books. To have pure sunshine, you need a little bit of rain too. Other books that inspired me: Michael Rosen's Sad book, Patrick Ness's A Monster Calls, and actually these books that have the balance, actually they can make you feel really good inside as well, because you feel like you're being seen, like you're being listened to. You're reminded that everybody goes through hard stuff and that it's possible to recover. So where we found Rex at the dream house, he's a little boy who has really sadly recently lost his dad, and he's dealing with grief. His home is very busy. His mum's going through grief. His little sister isn't really understanding what's happened to them and the gravity of how big this is. So she wants to just talk about Peppa Pig and make cookies. And Rex is at this difficult age where he's trying to navigate his way around his future and his life of what he's going through. So he goes to stay with his dad's best friend, who in the book is called Sparky, which is actually Chrissy Wardy's nickname, because he's an electrician and his hair is always whoosh, silver and up, standing on end, because he's probably recently had an electric shock. So he goes to stay with Sparky, where he is comforted and embraced and given space and love to try and heal the best that he can. Nature is a huge factor in the book. And I really relied on nature when I wasn't feeling very well myself, to get fresh air and vitamin D and be reminded that we are on planet Earth and that bigger stuff does happen and bugs still move and the sky still turns and rain still falls and animals still get hungry and dogs still bark and children still have lick lollipops and life still turns. And that was really important for me. I think looking at nature sometimes is an enormous reminder that, flowers come to life and then they go again and seeds grow and leaves fall. And I found, frost comes, and I live quite near a park, and seeing the changes in nature really, really reminded me that things can turn and they can get better. Um, so that's really the landscape, the location for the book does so much of the work because it reminds us of that. I took great comfort in that. So Rex is here back at the house with Chrissy Wardy. And Chrissy Wardy, oh, he's called Sparky, sorry. So with Sparky. So Sparky's really trying to encourage Rex to get to this dream house. But there's sort of a ghost story element to the book where you are worried what's inside the dream house, what is he going to come up against? And really we know that Rex is frightened of facing his grief, of maybe seeing the ghost of his dad or something he doesn't like. He's feeling fear, he's feeling confusion, he's scared. He's also feeling physical symptoms. He can't sleep very well. He can't hold foods down very well. He can't go to school. He feels tired. His energy is drained. And he's struggling to locate the emotion in his body too, as well as being a young person and trying to navigate his way around that as well. So the bit I'm going to read for you is when he gets that first makes the first decision to maybe go and be curious and see what's in the dream house. I think he's frightened of what is going to be inside there. He hasn't visited it for a long time, and if it's going to trigger some memories for him. It is a Tuesday when the sun finally comes out, and I feel ready to maybe see the world dressed in autumn outside, defrosting from the warp of time. I could try. I take out my sketchbook and draw. Waxy big fresh green palms like dinner plates and snarling roots and purple blooms and satin soft mouths of fruits and petals like smiling lips and pollen heads fluffy like apricots and the ground slick and papered with the camouflage swamp of crusty fallen leaves of orange and brown and red and green. Curling honey-coloured leaves hidden from the wet like battered cod, crispy and rolled up like cigars. Toad green oval leaves, tipped scarlet, veins like maps to little roads, wet with the syrup of season. The grass dusted like a flowered cake with smart conkers, the splatter of rotting, worm-torn, half-made apples that are speckled in freckles, blushing in red and yellow. The air smells damp and fresh, of wet wood and the mushy cloy of brewing cider. There are bugs and birds and winged things like dragonflies, and the garden is magical and reminds me that maybe the world can still turn through nature. The grass is long and happy, the exact way grass should be, and surrounding it are tall bushes and stems and tangles of nettles and herbs. There is the willow, velvet-rich curtains, hairy like dreadlocks, the arc of the tree, a bending teapot cowering to its knees, its bark blasted with age and effort, its stories wide. It has watched me grow up, but I know what hides behind it, and I can't go in. And I U-turn as soon as I imagine myself doing so. And I look up to see Sparky at the back door from the kitchen, give that smile to me that wants to be tears. It's okay. And the story really is about Rex finding a friendship within the best friend of his dad that has recently passed and learning about his dad through Sparky. But also there's a new character that comes into the story, an unexpected kind of ominous, abstract, surreal character, which is a boy that lives behind the back fence. And this is Sydney. And Sydney, I mean, I've had many interpretations of who Sydney might be, and I would love for you guys to share with me who you think Sydney might be. He's a friend, a boy that lives behind the fence, but he could also be the ghost of his dad as a child. He could also be comfort. He could also be an imaginary friend that Rex has created during this time. So I would love to hear who you think Sydney might be. I do sort of know the answer, but I would love for you to interpret that for yourself. So it's been amazing having this book out, to be able to share, you know, the story and discovery of the dream house with others, and give permission, I suppose, to, it's always something I've wanted to do since, you know, my own experience. Thank you for writing this book. It is important to address grief, and this book does it beautifully. Thank you so much, Olivia. That's really moved me, and a big thank you. I really appreciate that, because I think going through something hard can make you feel extremely lonely and frightened. And I think that's the whole point of this book. It's a book about empathy. We're always told the whole time that, you know, when someone's going through something hard, to listen. And listening is hugely important. And in fact, if you're at school, I'm sure you're told to listen all the time. Should listen, listen, listen. Listening is so important. It is an amazing skill. But I've also learned that sharing is really important. And not just to get things off our chests, to talk. You know, if you're going through anything hard, the bravest thing a person can do is ask for help. It truly is. It takes a lot of courage to ask for help. But sharing as well, not only because you, as I said, you feel better, you feel offloaded, but also because somebody else can go, me too. I had that, that was difficult, or I felt this as well, but I got through it and it was okay. And straight away you feel less alone, less crazy or mad or weird or strange or like a freak or a failure. You feel a part of something, and that's very, very powerful. Could you name a couple of the feelings Rex, Sparky, and the boy in the dream house have? Sure. I would say they're feelings and emotions at the same time. So certainly Rex is going through an awful lot. He's just lost his dad at a really young age. That's a lot to process for anybody. He's definitely going through sadness. He's going through grief. I would say some people would read this and say that he's experiencing depression. He can't sleep, he can't eat, he's not feeling very good at all. But he does have a glimmer of hope. On top of this, he's got confusion. He's struggling to process everything that he's experiencing. It's all happening quite big. But also, yeah, I think that he's hopeful that through friendship he can find his way. And the biggest thing he's feeling at this time is confusion, not knowing how to feel. He's also got this childlike curiosity that he's straddling. He wants to get to the bottom of the garden and find out what's there. You know, he's quite desperate at this stage too. But still, this is why Sydney's character is so important, to kind of draw that out of him. So then there's Sparky in the book, who's definitely feeling sadness. He's also feeling the weight of losing his own childhood best friend. If you read the Dream House, you'll see there's a symmetry, there's parallels between what Rex and Sydney are going through in their new friendship, and also what Rex's dad and Sparky would have gone through as young boys. So when you get there, you'll see that the two patterns are. So I think it's difficult for Sparky too, because he's trying to go through his roll through the motions of his own grief, whilst also caring for somebody else and having the capacity to straddle both. I think as an adult, it is hard when you. I mean, certainly the pandemic for me. I don't know how you guys felt, but I'm sure it's difficult for the grown-ups that we live with, when they're probably feeling scared or confused or worried of what the future will look like, whilst also trying to protect us, and that's a lot to navigate in one go. So those kind of feelings. I would say they're the main ones inside the dream house. So the book also came from an inspiration. Another idea that I've been working with for a while, called Butterfly Brain. Now, this is actually Dreamhouse's sister. Dreamhouse has a big sister, which is this book, Butterfly Brain, which is also illustrated by Gwen Millward. I should actually, before I move on, sorry, I should show you some Dreamhouse illustrations. That's probably really important, because you guys are probably wanting to see some visuals. Now, the book, what was a really nice extra element to the book is that Rex keeps a sketchbook. And I would always urge anybody, anyway, going through anything, to keep some sort of form of journaling. Diaries never worked for me as a child. I don't know how you guys felt, but I would always find that whenever I started a diary, suddenly annoying things would happen to me, or bad things would happen, and I'd be like, this is just a chance to moan, which is good, maybe can be useful, but I wouldn't want to read that back. So journaling, though, it can be sketching, comic book making, scrapbooks. I've always kept scrapbooks, which are amazing, where you can put your tickets down, or your travel cards, or photographs, letters. Having a pen pal could be really amazing, could just be through email, a friend from school or a family member. Always have some sort of journaling, which is just especially for you. I also, if anyone's got a smartphone or access to a tablet or anything like that, recording, videoing yourself, just keeping sort of just for yourself, you know, not to share it anywhere, just to keep for yourself some sort of journaling can be really, really useful to process things and keep you company and remind yourself anything gets challenging that you can get through it. You can look back and go, actually, I managed to get through that. It's almost like a little friend really that you can, you know, keep within yourself. And Rex keeps this sketchbook, and this is part of what he's going through when he's struggling with his grief, is that he can't access his creativity anymore, which is something that happened to me when I wasn't very well. I could no longer access my creativity, and that made me feel even more broken and alone. So that's been a really useful skill to have with the dream house, is the sketchbook element, which has meant that there could be like a book inside a book, which has given the book a really nice scruffy feel. It feels like you can kind of scrap around with it. And I like books to feel like that. I want books to feel used. I'm not interested in a really posh, kind of smart looking book that isn't made for, you know, spilling coffee on and tea on, getting ring marks from a cup of tea on it. You should be able to go on holiday and be on the beach and get a cracked spine and bent over corners of the pages. That's how a book should be, in my opinion. And I love nothing more than going to a secondhand shop, buying books and keeping books and sharing books. We are big library members. We love our local library. I love fixing library books. You know, whenever we borrow books and there's, you know, pages falling out, I will always enjoy that, enjoy the shared experience of taking a book and borrowing it and fixing it. And that's what's really lovely to the dream house and the illustrations, is that it's a book inside a book. So I'll show you some illustrations. So first of all, what we did with it, there's characters. So Sparky, as I said, is an electrician. So we've given them these kind of the plus and minus that you'd find inside a plug. And I was really interested in that duality of nature versus science and electricity when you're going through this and as something hard like this. Rex has just lost his dad in a hospital, so he's been in this world of wires and, you know, cold walls and lino and white jackets. And I was thinking about the way that the wires are very similar to roots, you know, roots of a plant, and both this power shooting through. You've got the power of nature versus the power of science and electricity, and the comparisons within that. And the plug was a really nice visual to use. I don't know if anybody's seen inside a plug before. Obviously, never touch a plug on your own, but if you have an adult that could unscrew a plug for you and show you inside what it looks like, it's almost like opening, you know, on an operating table, looking inside a heart. You know, it's got all these different connectivities that do different things. So this is Rex, and the strangest thing of all is this looks exactly like my godfather's house, the way the tiles are and the plants going around. And when I saw this illustration, I just couldn't believe it, because I was like, that is not just how I envisioned this book to look. That looks like my memory, which is very, very odd. Gwen is an amazing illustrator. So she's done these lovely spots throughout, which are gorgeous. And then there's these broad pages, which will just have text across it, because sometimes images will do and sometimes words will do. And I love the way that we've, in this book, been able to just give space, you know, to these thoughts, these big thoughts. When what are we going to do today, when sometimes you don't feel like doing anything at all, you feel overwhelmed. Here's a really nice one of Sparky. Oops. There he is with his big curly hair and his glasses and all his wires. And music plays a big factor in the book too. My dad's really into music, as I told you guys. And then the roads almost lent into the wires as well, this idea of wires and roots and roads. So it's a really playful kind of sketchy book. And then there's poor little Rex. He's really going through it. And then I'll show you some of the lovely things we've also done. Quite rare and bold to have full black page, you know, dark pages in a children's book. Again, this is that idea that we had of children's book needing to be bursting with light and colour and joy, when actually we can give space to difficult stuff too. That doesn't mean good stuff's not going to come. And whole passages in teardrops, or underneath the willow of the tree, or thoughts inside a brain. was really important to us. It felt kind of handwritten-y. And then I'll show you what we've done, like when the characters talk rather than Sydney said or Sparky said. We've done this almost, as I told you, first derived from a play. So we've kept that kind of script element to it, where it could also be read aloud, which was also important to me. And there's the final image of Sparky and Rex and Sydney there. So that was Gwen Millward. So you should, if anybody has access to social media, do follow Gwen's work, because she really is an incredible artist. So as I said, it was first born from Butterfly Brain, which was also a stage piece. Now, Butterfly Brain is slightly different. I'm sure you'll know what I mean with this, when maybe some of you might do this, but maybe you know somebody in class that leans back on their chair quite a lot. So when I usually, before the pandemic, I visit a lot of schools. I've visited hundreds of schools all around the UK. It's my favorite part of the job, being with you guys. Reminds me so much of why I love this, and gives me a great chance to be a kid again, which is what I really love. And I can't believe how many kids still lean back on their chair. So when my little brother was small, he always leant back on his chair, and my mum said, if you keep doing that, one day, as teachers always say, you might fall back and you might crack your head open. And he was like, whatever. And he did actually lean back and he did crack his head open. I can laugh now because he's absolutely fine. But I remember seeing him, in his car seat. He was only small, so only like 3. And he was all bloody in his car seat, and he had to go to hospital and everything. And I was thinking, I was about 10 at the time. And I remember thinking, my goodness, that's not just going to his brain. What's going to happen to his dreams and his ideas and his memories and his thoughts and his imagination? Is everything going to fall out now that he's cracked his brain open? Because your brain is so precious. And that gave me the idea for Butterfly Brain. So this is all about a little boy called Gus, who leans too far back on his chair and cracks his head open, and his brain and his ideas and his memories, everything, his thoughts, all get lost, and he has to use his butterfly brain to locate everything back again. So I thought I would read you a little bit of this as well. Now, this is actually written in rhyme. As I said, it's also illustrated by Gwen. And this is the big sister to Dream House. So we put this cautionary bit at the beginning, and it says, this might seem to you like an ordinary story. You might even think that stories are boring, but this is not like other stories, no. This is a warning, a tale of caution that is rather strange and sort of gory. Okay. It begins with a little boy whose name was Gus, which was actually short for asparagus. He was always one of those kids who was making a fuss and stood out for acting kind of tough. See, Gus was always getting told off for this or that or which or what, for starting scuffs and playing rough. He never listened when Miss said, enough is enough. He'd just open his mouth and shout, shut up. Teachers didn't scare him, nor did the rules. He thought he was in charge, boss of the school. He gave it the big un and thought it looked cool to make little kids tremor, squish big kids small. And there was one thing Gus always did without care, something that someone like you wouldn't dare, something quite naughty for which Gus had a flair. The little boy was an expert at leaning back on his chair. Said his daughter, I've told you once, I've told you twice. It isn't funny and it sure isn't nice. Now, once again, surprise, surprise, I'll tell you, Gus, this one last time. Stop leaning back on your chair. I don't care. I don't care. I do what I want. So there. And you can't stop me. Me, me, me. I will always, always lean back on my chair. And then he gets to school. His grandma tells him not to do it. Then one day he's at school. The teacher gets really cross. She says, stop leaning back on your chair. Stop leaning back on your chair. Stop leaning back on your chair. I don't care. I don't care. I do what I want. So there. And you can't stop me. Meh, meh, meh. I will always, always lean back on my chair. Splat. And I loved this. I love that Gwen really went there with making it so grotesque. I'll read the words and you'll see why she went as gross as she did. Blood dotted the floor in a trail of red crumbs and stained the soles of shoes like spat out chewed gum. Kids in class were frightened, crying, "Daddy, Mum, there's a kid at school today whose head exploded like a bomb, and grey bits went everywhere like rancid sausage meat, and all this gun snot stuff slopped blobs on our feet, and there was screaming as his bone all crumbled up like wheat, all because little Gus couldn't sit straight up in his seat." You might be thinking, whatever, big deal, YOLO, that's all right. It's just a crack to the head, and if you're not dead, then fine. It's just a bit of blood, you know, the scab will heal with time. But no, no, a crack from leaning back doesn't change your head. It can also change your mind. So one night, this is little Gus sleeping, and his brain butterfly comes, and she's really powerful. And she's going to teach him a lesson that he has to go back and find his memories, his thoughts, his dreams. I don't want to give too much away, but the butterfly has a magical quality to her. And I'll read this little bit where Gus realizes, this is towards the end, where he realizes what he's done, and he wants to get everything back. And he listens into his grandma and his dad and his teacher. And he comes downstairs, he's got this little bandage on his head, and he's feeling really sorry for himself. And his grandma and his dad are sitting on the sofa. "Dad, Gran, I've got something to say. I'm sorry that I'm naughty, that I don't listen, okay? That I went and leant back too far that stupid day. But now I've learnt my lesson, and it's me who has to pay. I know that it's happened. I know what's done is done. I know that sometimes I'm an idiot and that I'm messed up. I know you only tell me off because I'm the one you love, but I think I'm ready now. I'm ready to hear about Mum." And Grandma says, "You were so scared that day, Gus. You were just a child. You ran away from the funeral and out into the wild. And the gravedigger found you and gave you a smile. He said, 'She's not gone, little one. She's just sleeping for a while.' But you were so terrified. You said he looked like a slug, and that his eyes were crawling towards you like oil black bugs, and his teeth were shrouded in mud, and so were his gums. You shouted it and called him the maggot man, and then you shouted, 'Run.' You ran away from everything. You were so scared of everyone. But really, you were running, Gus, from the fear of losing Mum." She's giving him a cuddle there. And this is Gus's mum. "Your mum was interested in the whole wide world. No matter the matter, you could always tell. But even as a woman, she had the soul of a girl, as weightless as a feather, as light as snow fell. She was roaring with colour, but gentle too. She always knew what to say and exactly what to do. She wore her heart on her sleeve, but you were cocooned. And when she died, we like to think she snuck inside you." How to describe her, people have tried, but she was as free as a song, impossible to define. And if she was like anything captured in time, I'd say your mother, well, she would be a butterfly. So don't let her go, don't leave her behind, don't let her be forgotten or fade away with time. It's you who keeps the wings of your mother alive, not just by remembering her, but by keeping her inside. She's hidden in the numbers on your birthday cake, in the flicker of a candle in the untamed flame. You'll find her at the window whispering your name. In the mirror, she smiles at you through the look on your face. You'll find her in the garden in the green, green grass, tiptoeing on the edge of the water in your glass. She flutters all around you and lands wherever you are and watches you growing from her throne up in the stars. Sometimes it seems like she's gone, and I know that sounds hard, but somebody who loves you never goes far. For love never leaves you once you've known it from the start. For love never leaves you once you've known it in your heart. So that was from Butterfly Brain 2. So the books really do tackle the same emotions and feelings and themes. And that's why we felt they came together. And that's why Gwen and I worked on them. And, you know, I've still never met Gwen. If you guys ever become an author, you might find you have this visual in your mind of working side by side with an illustrator. And I've never actually met Gwen. So I really would love to meet her one day. If anybody still would like, we've got a few minutes. If anybody would like to ask any more questions, it can be a serious question, and I'll still probably give you a silly answer, but you can ask me silly questions too, and I'd love to hear those also. I was also asked today if I could set you guys a challenge, which was such a lovely idea, and I wanted to share with you this little guess what is it? A hobby, a little pattern, a little rhythm that we picked up in lockdown, in the first lockdown, when it was so scary. We did this thing every day, my son and I. I've got a 3-year-old, And we would wash out an old jam jar or a pasta sauce jar, whatever you guys have, and we would go to the park each day and we would like fill it with all the things that we found on our walk, whether that be leaves or stones, not bugs. We wouldn't obviously, disrupt any nature, but any flowers that had fallen. And our jars became really, really thick with, full with feathers and all sorts of stuff. Obviously, watch out for dog poo. We had one incident where we did get a little bit of dog poo, and that was a really bad day. But, sometimes the more we searched, we found little bits of china with paintings on them. We found a little letter. We found a hair ribbon. We found a little photograph. We found some ends of a shopping list. These are also amazing ways to start stories. So if you ever think, I want to write a story or a poem and I don't know where to begin, it can also be a really great inspiration tank. So all you do is get a grown up or somebody to help you rinse out an old jar, as you would do if you recycle or anything like that, and keep it. Be careful if you've got a glass jar. If you don't want to use a jar, it's just because it looks pretty and you can see inside it. Anything will do, a bag or something that you don't mind getting a little bit dirty, or a lunchbox or anything. Take it out, fill it, and spend as long as you want. You can look at the things then or save it as a treat for when you get home to investigate. And then what we would do is get a piece of paper or just a nice blank clean surface when we get back. And we would line all the things out that we found, whether it was be conkers or leaves or string, lost earrings. And then maybe if you wanted to, you could spend time, drawing, the items that you find, or talking about them, or thinking where they came from. That can be such a great way to make new stories. I do a similar thing with buttons. I have a big bag of buttons that I will pull from, and I think about what character, what the button could belong to, or what dress, or what, bag, or whatever the button could belong to. And it can really open up your mind and make your creativity think in new ways. You could write little poems, or you could draw them, or you could think of other ways of how maybe, that china plate bit that I found landed and ended up in the park. Olivia, we're loving Butterfly Brain, a simple premise that you've developed in an exquisite way. That is so kind. Thank you so much. I feel like it's important to get humor always in there, especially when you're trying to digest something that is heavy. I think sugaring the pill is a nice way. When I was poorly, not very well, there was some times I look back on and I have to laugh, because I'm not laughing at myself. I'm using humor as a way to hold myself, and actually that makes me have ownership. It makes me see the funny side. And I'm never saying anybody should, give themselves a hard time and laugh at themselves, and definitely not other people. But I think having a little bit of sugar and seeing the funny side of things, when you feel able to, laughter can be an incredible medicine. But the real medicine and everything is love. We always deal with everything through love. That's been such a useful message for me to take through, and with all the work that I try and make. Would anybody else have any last questions? Oh, hey, Jude.
Hi, Laura. I thought I'd just pop up because we've just got a few minutes left. So, yeah, I think it's great if there are any other questions come through. I was just thinking that you talked a lot about empathy in both the books that you've read today, both The Dream House and Butterfly Brain. And I just wondered, well, two questions really. Is there a character that you've got in either of those books that you're particularly proud of for whatever reason? Proud that you developed them, or just proud what they did in the story? So that's the first question.
Thank you. Well, Jude, can I just say first of all, that's such a nice character question, sorry, because you do start to feel quite protective over your characters when you create them. And to ask if I'm proud of one, I don't think I've ever been asked that before. And it's such a nice question, because as the writer, you do feel a little bit like you're all of their mums, even if you're writing about a mermaid or a zebra or an insect. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of Rex. I really do put him through absolute hell in the book, and he goes through a really tough time. And he has nightmares and all sorts of horrible things. So yes, I think Rex, what he overcomes and what he goes through. I should say that when I was thinking of Rex, my dad had lost his own dad himself. So my dad was going through grief. It's a very, very strange thing seeing my dad that I think of as this big, giant, beer drinking, fist slamming on a table, and he's telling a joke, like big, heavy voice. suddenly to see him be his in being a child going through that. So I had him in mind. Sometimes it's easy to forget that the grown-ups around us were once small people, that were scared of the
Yeah.
dark, or wetting the bed or whatever. And actually it's helpful to remember, for empathy for ourselves, for patience and love. So yeah, I would say that the answer would be Rex. I really just put him through hell.
Yeah, but he shows a great deal of resilience, and I know Spark is a sort of a presence around him that kind of um, is there and protects him almost and gives him strength without being obvious, doesn't he? He's there in the building of
Absolutely.
presence, and
Yes.
um, but I also, yeah, I think you did put Rex through quite a lot, but it was lovely to see how the relationships carried on developing and who brought different things to Rex and what Rex gave to the other characters in the book as well, because he gave Sparky and Sydney something too, didn't he, as part of their journey and their understanding of the world, which was beautiful too. And I wondered if in either of the books that you've read today, is there anybody that you'd nominate for an empathy award? So an award for being, it's hard, isn't it?
You've,
That
you've
because
really you've really raised a really nice point there again, Jude. I think that's a really nice message to pass along as well, how proud it makes you to take care of other people. And actually, it's very rewarding to be empathetic and give kindness to other people. And it can be returned, and always have that in mind of what it can be like, we all know how it feels to go through something hard. So I think that's such a nice thing what you've said there, that they learn stuff too about themselves. I think it would have to probably be Sparky, because when you're supporting somebody that's going through something difficult, it's really hard to know what to say and what to do. We know not to go cheer up, or
yeah,
that sort of thing. And
smile, it may never happen when it has, and what?
exactly, try and see the good things or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And actually, it is just being there, as you say.
yeah,
Sparky is constantly trying to revigor, Rex, and throw voltage of life back into
well,
his
that's
life
nice.
every day. And I think it's just, making cups of tea even if they're not going to get drunk, opening the windows, suggesting, making things as slow as possible,
Yeah,
and just following the tune and the needs of the person that is suffering. And Rex, Sparky's enormously patient, goes out and gets croissants, and even if they're not
yeah,
going to get eaten, and makes food, and just carries on being. And I think that's what it's about, just knowing that when it feels like your world is falling through, actually just that one constant, that's what can be enough to anchor you through till tomorrow. So I would
yeah.
say Sparky.
Oh, that's lovely, and especially when he's got a sofa outside. That's what I loved. Outside, having a cup of
I know,
tea. Just
I
loved
know,
that. I
I
was
know,
thinking,
yeah.
"Oh, can I get mine in the front garden?" But I don't think I can. So, Laura, I could talk for hours, or listen, I should say, listen to you for hours and ask loads of questions. But we've only got a couple of minutes left, and we've just got to mention about next week's Library Adventures Live. So I just want to say thank you for lots of things, but thank you for the book. It's absolutely
Oh,
wonderful and
thank
it's a
you for
great
having
read.
me.
And like you say, the illustrations really take you to different places. And it does feel quite sketchbooky, like you've been allowed to open somebody else's sketchbook and enter into their story. Really, it's lovely, and I'm looking forward to reading Butterfly Brain because I
Oh,
haven't read
thank
that
you
yet.
so much,
So
Jude. Thank you for having me,
really,
everybody, and thank you for being here.
oh well, Laurie,
And
thank you
definitely
so much.
people to send me pictures of their jars, or the poems that are
Yeah,
created
I
from
was
the
going to
jars.
say about the challenge. They
Yeah,
can send them to Twitter or Instagram. Maybe we've got an
yeah,
Instagram
yeah.
for you as
However, yeah,
well.
all for you guys,
Let's
however you want to.
just get your Instagram up, and also, so that's Instagram at Laura Lee Dockrill, and or you can send them to Library Adventures Live at kirklees.gov.uk. That's our email address. So you can hang around, Laura, if you'd like to just see who we've got coming up at
I'd
one
love
o'clock
to see.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just going to show a very brief video,
Great.
and then we'll sort of say thanks again and bye to everybody. So I'll just get the video up and let's get that done. Fingers crossed it'll all go as it should do. And there we go.
Rosiak, and I'm the author of Roar Like a Lion, which is an inspirational guide to living your best life, but there's an animal twist. So you are going to learn how to be welcoming like the wombat, how to embrace your creativity like a chimpanzee, and how to roar with all the confidence of a lion. So it comes out on October 7th, but on October 5th at 1 p.m., I am delighted to be taking part in Library Adventures Live with Kirklees Libraries, particularly as it's during UK Libraries Week. I'll be talking about some of my favorite animals in Roar Like a Lion, including wombats, vampire bats, and a very special horse named Zippy Chippy. So we'll do an activity where you'll learn a whole lot about how to communicate with and also listen to dogs. And I'll also be talking about all the ways animals can help and inspire us. Afterwards, you can ask me anything you want about the book, and I'd be really happy to answer all of your questions. So it's going to be lots of fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you there.
Wow, so that's another Library Adventures Live at 1 o'clock today. We've got a jam-packed day, but don't forget, both of them are recorded, so you can catch up with them again. And just a final big thank you to Laura Dockrill for joining us today, reading, sharing all these stories and inspiring us all to be a pop star storyteller. I thought that was such a good description of what you can be. It's kind of like, even if you can't spell 100% and you may get those red circles around, you can still be a pop star storyteller in whichever way you can find. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. Bye, everyone. Bye.